All right, guys, today we're going to talk about equivalent expressions. Yesterday we did the distributive property as a property of operation. That just leads us naturally into doing equivalent expressions. So we're going to look at a bunch of expressions that look different, but they're the same thing. So we need to make sure that we understand that the value, which is a word you're going to hear a lot in algebra, is what something is worth. And they are the same thing. So what do I mean by this? Well, we're going to start off with how are some ways that we make 24. So if I were to just say over here, all right, give me a bunch of ways to make the value 24. I know that 2 times 12 will equal 24. I also know that 16 plus 8 will equal 24. I also know that 6 times 4 equals 24. I know that 1 times 24 equals 24. I know that 31 minus 7 equals 24. I know that 3 times 8 equals 24. I know that 12 plus 12 equals 24. 23 plus 1 equals 24. 48 divided by 2 equals 24. Let's see, 40 minus 16 equals 24. 11 plus 13 equals 24. And the last one I'm going to do is 2 squared times 6 equals 24. So I know that all of these things have the same value, or they're worth the same amount when I do the operation. They're all going to be worth 24. So these are all equivalent expressions, meaning when I work them out, they will equal the exact same thing. So yesterday, using the distributive property, we found a different way of writing the same problem, meaning we were writing equivalent expressions. So we're going to work through a few of these today. It's not a super long lesson today, but let's say I want to have 6 parentheses 2 squared plus 4. Close the parentheses. Now I know that I can distribute. I can go, all right, distribute the 6. So using the distributive property, I can make a new equivalent expression. So I know 2 squared is actually a 4. So 6 times 4 would give me 24. And then plus the 4, right? So this would give me the same value as this. Okay. Now what if, instead of doing it this way, we actually use the order of operations? So what if I had this 2 squared equals 4 plus 4, that would give me an 8. Then I would have 6 times 8. This is also an equivalent expression. And I know that these all equal 48. So that is also an equivalent expression. Okay. What if I had 9 parentheses 6 minus 4 plus 1? Okay. Using the distributive property, I could distribute that 9 to have an operation of multiplication with each of these numbers, because remember, this parentheses means multiplication. So 9 times 6 is 54. Then minus 9 times 4 is 36. Then the plus sign, 9 times 1 is 9. That would be an equivalent expression. What if I actually followed order of operations and I did, okay, let's do this inside. 6 minus 4 is 2, plus 1 is 3. That would give me 9 times 3, and we know that that equals 27. So these are all different ways of writing a problem that has the value or the worth of 27. Okay, now we're going to jump down and have some variables involved. Because once you learn a rule in math, that rule has to always, always, always work. So what if I have something like this? 3b, 2r, 3c, what would that equal? Remember yesterday we said, okay, when we have all multiplication. So the only operation here is multiplication. We can use the commutative, long word, property, and I can look at the order that they are in. So I'm going to break these all apart, okay? So I'm going to say, all right, I have a 3 times a B times a 2 times an R times a 3 times a C. Okay, so I just took this and I broke it apart because I have the parentheses meaning multiplication and I have the implied multiplication of the coefficient in front of the variable. Now I can switch the order of these and group things that are alike. That is using the associative property. And I know you think it's funny that I am always harping on these properties, but next year in 7th grade, your teachers are going to assume you know what all of these mean. The associative property means I can group like things, okay? So I'm going to group the numbers and then I'm going to group the variables. So I'm going to say, okay, I have a 3 times a 2 times a 3, and then I'm going to put my variables in, times a B times an R times a C. So now these things are alike and these things are alike. I can do something with those. Those I don't have enough information to do anything with. So they're going to stay grouped together without me completing any operations. But these I can use the operation of multiplication to figure out. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 times 3 is 18. So I would have an 18 as a coefficient, and then I would have B times R times C. Again, that's implied multiplication. So here are 4 different ways of writing something that has the same value or is worth the same amount. Okay, I'm going to do one more like this because I know having one example for this is not enough. So we're going to take 5n times 3x plus 2r. Now I have a plus sign here, so I'm going to have to be a little bit more careful. I'm going to have to really look at how I reorder things, okay? So actually, let's break this down. What does this 2r really mean? Is that a coefficient of a 2 times r? Or because there's a plus sign here, is this an r? So r plus r, okay? That is what this actually is. This is actually r plus r, because remember when I have addition, I'm counting them, and this is saying I have 2 r's, okay? So we have to remember the operations here are super important. This plus sign says, oh, this part of the expression is different than this part where there's multiplication, okay? So I'm going to break down what I know here. I know that I have a 5 times an n times a 3 times an x. Then I have the plus r plus r. Okay, so this section is different than the rest, but I can still do something with this. So I'm going to use that associative property and I'm going to group like things. So the 5 and the 3 I can group together. Then the n and the x I can group together. Then I still have this plus r plus r. That's going to be different. Okay, so I'm going to times the 15 and the 3. So the 5 times 3 is 15. Getting a little ahead of myself. Then that's times the n times the x. And remember, implied multiplication here. Then I can have the plus the 2 r's. There is nothing else I can do here because I don't have any other information for the variables. So that is as far as I can go in simplifying that expression. But this and this and this are all equivalent expressions. So today you're going to do some practice in Khan Academy on equivalent expressions. Let me know if you have any questions.